In the headlines, Education Minister Adamu Adamu says he's a failure.
The only thing that worried me was I came into office with the resolve to remove out-of-school children, and I failed.
Revenue Mobilization, Allocation and Fiscal Commission clarifies position on salary review for political office holders. Emirates Airlines suspends flights to Nigeria over trapped funds. And Guinea junta seeks to prosecute ex-President Condé for alleged corruption. Hello and welcome to Trust TV News Update. I'm Zainab Bala. Hello and welcome. The Minister of Education, Adamu Adamu, has admitted failing as a minister. He stated that he could not solve several challenges he ought to have solved despite being the longest-serving Minister of Education. The minister highlighted that from out-of-school children, which has increased during his time in office, to ASUU strike and other challenges bedeviling the tertiary education system, he could not provide the needed solution. The minister, who spoke at the 66th National Council on Education in Abuja on Thursday, also accused the state ministries of education of adding to the factors that aided his failure as a minister.
Unfortunately, despite government's best efforts and all the numerous interventions in the past, we are still confronted with the challenge of out-of-school children, which is the direct result of lack of security in part. And I begin with this because 7 years ago when I became minister, I made it my priority, and up to this moment it is my priority. And I think I should say this. One of our elders phoned me about 2 weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago. He said, "Please, do you realize that from yesterday, you are the longest serving Minister of Education in Nigeria?" I didn't know, and I really didn't care whether I am the longest serving or shortest serving minister. The only thing that worried me was I came into office with the resolve to remove out-of-school children, and I failed. As a fallout, I requested that we should declare emergency in education, especially at the lower levels. Decision couldn't be taken on this because the issue of emergency in education at the level of primary school actually is state responsibility. So I was directed by the president to turn that memo into a memo for the National Economic Council, which I did, with the thinking that if the council bought into it, and the members are state commissioners, state governors, it means it will just be a nationwide business. I had to make a presentation 3 times, and up to this moment, emergency has not been declared.
President Muhammadu Buhari has approved the release of 12,000 metric tons of grains as relief materials to victims of flood disaster across the country. Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development, Sadia Umar Farouk, who announced this while briefing newsmen at State House Abuja on Thursday, said the federal government has so far intervened in 28 states of the federation. But what would probably fuel debate over the next few days is her assertion that Jigawa, Anambra and Kogi states are the most affected states by the floods, and that Bayelsa State is not among the top 10 states devastated by the disaster. Kaindi Amodu reports.
Official statistics from the ministry, number of deaths recorded per state, number of people displaced, number of injuries, houses damaged, farmlands per hectares damaged, as well as general population affected, are some of the indices used in assessing the states affected most by the floods. The 2022 flood data provided by the Humanitarian Ministry as of 24th October indicates that death toll in Jigawa stood at 91, 77 lives were lost in Anambra State, while in Kogi over 471,000 persons were affected. These statistics sharply contradict perceptions held in some quarters that Bayelsa State may be the worst hit, especially as it is mostly below sea level.
But it will also interest you to know that Bayelsa is not even amongst the 10 most hit. I think Jigawa is number one. And we have taken intervention to Bayelsa. And it's still ongoing. We are using the Nigerian Air Force to access the inaccessible areas.
Government has responded with President Muhammadu Buhari approving the release of 12,000 metric tons of grains comprising of sorghum, millet and garri from the National Strategic Reserve to NEMA for distribution to the 36 states of the country and the FCT. A plan has been put in place by NEMA to transport and hand over relief materials to state governments and the FCT authority, while the agency has already provided warehouse facilities in 6 geopolitical zones of the Federation to receive the items.
We have engaged the services of security agencies to support us secure our warehouses in the states. And when we're doing even the distributions, they are present there.
The humanitarian minister is dismissing claims by some state governments that they have not received any form of support from NEMA. She's also commiserating with those who lost their loved ones as a result of the flood disaster, but is pointing out that some persons refuse to be evacuated by areas prone to flood despite early warnings.
As I mentioned, we have evacuated those that agreed to be evacuated. Some people feel these are their ancestral places, and so they do not want to leave, or they will not leave, and then they face the consequences.
There is an ongoing assessment of farmlands damaged with a view to compensating those affected by the floods, while temporary shelters have been erected in 22 states to accommodate those displaced. From State House, Abuja, Kehinde Amodu, Trust TV News.
Now, the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, has distributed relief materials to 37,000 households affected by flood in Borno State. The Deputy Director, Human Resources, Muhammad Kanar, presented the items on behalf of the NEMA Director General Mustafa Habib Ahmed in Maiduguri. The Deputy Director said items are not meant to compensate the severe effect of flood on the victims, but to cushion the negative impact. Director General Borno State Emergency Management Agency Yaba Okolo commended President Muhammadu Buhari and NEMA for their prompt support to the state. She said the gesture would go a long way in alleviating the sufferings of the victims, saying the 2022 flood affected about 37,000 households in the state. Following recent sack of some communities by flood in Rivers State, the state chapter of Nigerian Medical Association have taken medical outreach to Ahwada East local government in order to forestall outbreak of diseases. The report.
Speaking during the medical outreach at the eternally displaced camp in support of the flood victims, Chairman of NMA in Rivers State, Dr. Ebi Robinson, said they were able to gather over 100 doctors to the IDP camps to give free medical treatment to people.
There are over 5,000 persons right in this camp that are on the queue, documented to be attended to. We have already dewormed over 500 children right here with albendazole, and then we're giving them food and drink to support the drug that has already been administered.
Dr. Robinson commended the state government for its prompt response to the flood victims and called for improvement at the IDP camps within the state.
From the time we came for our fact-finding mission and now, the Flood Victim Intervention Task Force have done a lot. We saw a lot of differences, although there is room for improvement, but they've done very well. So I want to thank His Excellency Chief Barrister Nyesom Ezewonwike for the task force he has set us and for mobilizing the task force into the IDP and the flood-affected areas to help the people in those environments.
Some of the beneficiaries expressed delight for the free medical outreach.
I hope those people that are sick here, they will be okay. Because there is no doctor here No, nothing, no medicine. So as they come, we appreciate it.
I complain of waist pain and this my ribs and BP. They tested and recommend this trust for me.
On behalf of the camp, I want to sincerely thank the NMA for this quick response to my people. And what they have said, we want to also promise them that these materials will be shared. One grasswood, one insecticide, one net, and all of the items will be shared amicably.
Our house don't fall for ground. No food, no anything. As we come here, no any food where we can give us. Yesterday night, they share one part of a yam. 2 person one, they take one. Share and go to 2. We sleep like that.
Over 2,000 internally displaced persons benefited from the medical treatment.
The Chairman Revenue Mobilization Allocation and Fiscal Commission RMAFC, Mohammed Bello, has given the Commission's clarification on the proposed salary review for political holders in the country. The Commission's recent announcement on upward review of salaries of political office holders amidst rising inflation and economic hardship has generated criticisms.
In fact, the process has started. The President has directed us to accept a report that was given to the Attorney General of the Federation as far as the salary of judicial officers is concerned. I'm sure you are aware there was a lawsuit recently where some people took the federal government to court or the Federation to court on the salaries of judicial officers. So the President directed the Commission to work on it. The report was forwarded to us. So in line with the way we want to look at it, we will look at comprehensive review. Review does not mean we are increasing. Review does not mean we are reducing. Review does not mean we are leaving it the way it is. We will analyze it scientifically, look at it, and come up with our decision based on all the scientific data that is available to us.
Elsewhere, 2 people have been killed in a landmine attack by terrorists in the Chikun local government area of Kaduna State. The incident occurred on Thursday when the victim's vehicle drove over a landmine allegedly planted by a terrorist in a location known as Zangontofa in the Kabrasha general area of Chikun local government area. According to the Kaduna State Commissioner for Internal Security and Home Affairs, Samuel Arwan, the victims were transporting their farm produce when the incident occurred. Meanwhile, Kaduna State Governor Nasir El-Rufai has condoled the families and people of the area over the unfortunate incident, where he appealed to the residents to remain calm. Kaduna is one of the states in the northwest and north central that has been experiencing a series of attacks. Police in Kwara State have arrested 8 suspected illegal miners and recovered 3 trailer loads of marble stones in the Patigi local government area of the state. Police Public Relations Officer in the state, Okasami Ajayi, disclosed this in a statement on Thursday. He said the suspects were arrested along the Shari, Saragi and Patigi area of the state on October 30th, following a petition written to the State Commissioner of Police, Paul Odama. According to the police spokesman, residents of Patigi local government area and the Association of Licensed Miners of Kwara State had complained that illegal miners have turned their lands into fields of illegal mining of mineral resources. The situation, Ajayi noted, had resulted in the ecological problems and sabotage to the economy of both the state and the federal government. You're watching News Update on Trust Television. Coming up. Makurdi residents remember the good old days. Details of this after the break. Stay with us.
There is danger looming everywhere, not only affecting us, but affecting the whole country.
Ni at least dai na wasa iri buhu 10 na shinkafa. Ruwan biniyo ya zo ya mamaye sannan na loddo kuma ya zo ya kara.
Tau ta yi asara, Taraba ta yi asara.
Most of the flood we are seeing is a fingerprint of climate change. We are having rainfall uncertainty.
The real person that's supposed to know and avert its effects is left in the doom.
Akwai matsalan abinci a jihar Taraba, amma Najeriya.
That's good. That's good to see.
Welcome back. If you are just joining us, this is Trust TV News Update and top stories. Education Minister Adamu says he is a failure. Revenue Mobilization, Allocation and Fiscal Commission clarifies position on salary review for political office holders. Moving on, properties worth millions of naira were destroyed by a midnight fire outbreak in Osogbo, Osun State capital on Thursday. Residents said the fire was caused by power surge due to electricity spike in the area. Hamid Oyegbade files this report.
The midnight fire ravaged Akindeko area at Alekuodo in Osogbo till the morning, destroying valuable properties. Firemen made efforts to stop the fire from spreading to other buildings. One of the affected buildings had furniture materials, while the other had inflammable items including foam mattresses. Residents said the fire was caused by power surge. The chairman of Osogbo West Local Government, Ademola Olaniyan, appealed to residents to remain calm and allow firefighters to perform their duties.
From what we heard from the people that were living in this area, we were told it was a power surge that got to the extent of cutting rattling cable.
The spokesperson of the Osun State Fire Service, Ibrahim Adekunle, said the firefighters responded to the distress call from the residents immediately, noting that the situation is under control.
Around 2:30 early today, we received distress calls from the people of the state that there's a fire at Akindeko here. And as our usual practice, we engage and we deployed our men for the operation. And when we got here, we just saw that there's a mighty fire in between two buildings. You know, we can see the Art Deco and another building beside. So the fire was suspected to have started from the other building, very close to the Art Deco. Though for now, we cannot ascertain the actual cause of the fire. But we got here around 2:30, and since then, as you can see on ground, we have engaged the fire and we have been trying to put it out.
The content in the building is not so easy that it can easily go off like that. The more you put water, when you leave, before you come back, it's already inflamed again. We have foams, cutting materials and clothings. So it's not easy. They are going to replace water about 10 times, and the fire you can see is still on.
The residents of the area commended the firemen for taming the inferno. Amid Ojegbade, Trust TV News, Oshogbo.
The train transportation, though not operational now, has been described as affordable and safer by those who experienced the good old days of the railway transportation decades ago. In Makurdi, Jimmy Azandi went to see what remained of the once busy railway terminal. His report.
This is what is left of the tracks in Makurdi that host one-way terminus on the Port Harcourt-Enugu-Kafanchan-Maiduguri route, but not yet in the Makurdi area. Some residents speak on the good old days.
Yes, for the period of time that this thing have not been moving, people suffered a lot. You see, but there's one thing that I observe, like this, as they call it, the railway call it, I think narrow gauge or something like that. There are the other places that the train is running, but this very one from Port Harcourt to Kafanchan for a long time been running. I don't know the reason why. You know, if there is movement of train, people from the local village, they used to bring something to the town. When they are going there, they buy something and take it back to the station.
To some, the trains were quite conducive for their businesses. They counted huge profits due to minimal transportation costs compared to the road transportation.
We do travel to Kafanchan to bring this our goods. Formally, when we buy them, we book it inside the local train. The local train will move freely from Kafanchan to Makurdi. There will be no disturbance along the road. Even when we get to here, Makurdi, they will discharge the wagon. I put it at this last track here. We just offload our diesel and put it inside. Not having the pain of vehicle dropping it there and we pushing them. We are feeling it greatly. And it has affected the prices of our goods. The goods are very costly now. Even we that are selling it, before we bring it here, to come and bargain on how to sell it and get something to eat, it will be very hard. Because when you are looking at it, they are very expensive.
Concerning the railway line, you understand? I would say that before is more better than now. Because we that are selling that we are suffering, you understand? Coming to the transport is easier. Even we that are at East, it's easier for us to do.
Some fear the government and users fear to preserve the facilities that are for the benefit of all.
If they are vandalizing this and being you a common man, can you go to the track and stop those people, even if they are government workers? We don't know. Are we to harass them because the train have not been passing? How can you vandalize the road or dig a tile road where vehicles are passing? If vehicles are not passing there, then it's automatically the government have engineered those people to come and support the road. Not even the vandalization are the problem. Who sent them to do that? And why is the government not arresting them?
These vehicles were impounded with vandalized rail tracks. Some suspects have been arrested in connection with the crime. But here it seems the Nigerian Railway Corporation will have much more work to do, as some persons have built residential houses within the parameters of the railway.
And in business, Emirates Airlines has suspended flight operations to Nigeria over its inability to repatriate blocked funds. The airline, in a statement made available on Thursday, said the suspension took effect from October 29, 2022. The airline said it has communicated its position to the federal government and the Central Bank of Nigeria. Emirates had in August suspended flights to Nigeria over its $85 million blocked revenue. In August, the International Air Transport Association said foreign airlines have not been unable to repatriate $464 million from Nigeria. CBN Governor Godwin Emefiele subsequently promised to release $265 million to foreign airlines to offset part of the trapped funds. Emirates said it took the decision because it was yet to receive an allocation of its blocked funds to be repatriated. And on the foreign scene, the U.S. Army has promoted a woman of Nigerian descent, Amanda Zubike, from Lieutenant Colonel to Brigadier General. She was promoted to the rank at a military base in Fort Knox, Kentucky, USA, in a ceremony held recently. Also speaking at the event, the Commanding General of the U.S. Army Futures Command, James Rainey, hailed Amanda and others who were promoted, describing the position as belonging to exceptional officers. Born in the UK to a Nigerian father and Zimbabwean mother, Amanda enrolled in the U.S. Army in 1994, becoming an aviator after passing the Army Aviation Basic Course. Amanda studied mass communication, media studies at the University of Central Arkansas between 1989 to 1993, and also has a Master of Professional Studies, Public Relations, Corporate Communications from Georgetown University. Guinea's ruling junta is calling for the prosecution of former President Alpha Condé, who was overthrown in a coup in 2021. The ruling junta is also calling for the prosecution of some over 180 senior officials and former ministers for alleged corruption. The military, which took over power more than a year ago, has made the fight against corruption one of its major proclaimed battles, and many former officials have already been detained in this context. The Minister of Justice, Alphonse Charles, writes in a letter to prosecutors. He listed those to be prosecuted, including the former head of state, 2010 to 2021 ex-prime minister, and 188 others, some of which are already in prison, and some mentioned severally. The letter further ordered prosecutors to pursue the listed persons for alleged illicit enrichment, money laundering, forgery, embezzlement of public funds, and complicity. And that's it on news updates. Do not forget to follow us across all our social media platforms. I'm Zainab Bala. Thanks for your time and company.